If someone started speaking to you in Croatian, would you understand them if you only knew Serbian or the other way around? Hi everyone, my name is Anastasia and I've been living in Croatia for almost 4 years now, and just recently I visited Serbia for the first time. The trip made me wonder, what is the real relationship between Croatian and Serbian? And I have to admit that's kind of embarrassing, but before moving here, I knew almost nothing about Croatia or Serbia or the Balkans in general. But once I came here and started to learn Croatian, that was inevitable. I started discovering more about Serbian and other languages in this region. So, if we really want to understand the differences and similarities between Serbian and Croatian, we can skip a little bit of history, because to understand these languages today, we need to see where they come from. So let's look back at some history. It's not going to take long or be really boring, I promise, at least I hope so, but yeah. Early beginnings. The South Slavs arrived in Balkans around 6th to 7th centuries. They spoke an early form of the Slavic language, the common ancestor of all the Slavic languages we know today. It's called Common Slavic or Proto-Slavic, which later split into different dialects. In the areas of modern-day Croatia and Serbia, the Slavic language split into three main dialects: Shtokavian, Kajkavian, and Chakavian. These dialects became the foundation for what would later grow into modern-day Croatian and Serbian languages. The main dialect that became the base for both Croatian and Serbian is Shtokavian dialect. But there were two other dialects, Kajkavian and Chakavian, as we mentioned, in Croatia, which influenced the language and are still part of Croatian identity. Meanwhile, in Serbia, Shtokavian was dominant and later shaped the standard Serbian. If you want to know a little bit more about dialects, I already have a video about how to learn Croatian, so in case you are learning Croatian, you'll find this useful because there are lots of resources, tips, and interesting facts about Croatian language. For centuries, Croats and Serbs lived under different empires. Croats were mostly under Habsburg monarchy or later Austro-Hungarian Empire, while Serbs were mostly under Ottoman Empire. But some parts of Croatia were also ruled by the Ottoman Empire, so both languages absorbed some Turkish words. However, overall, still Croatian shows stronger Central European influence, and Serbian was shaped more by the Ottoman influence. For example, Croatian borrowed more from German and Serbian borrowed more from Turkish. 19th century, the idea of one language. In the 19th century, during the national awakenings in Europe, there was a movement to unite South Slavs. Intellectuals proposed common language for Croats and Serbs based on the Shtokavian dialect. This was seen as a way to unite nations closer, although each part still wanted to preserve their own national identity. 20th century, one language, two standards. During Yugoslavia, the language was officially called Serbo-Croatian or Croato-Serbian, but in practice there were two centers of standardization, one in Zagreb, where the linguists, the schools, and media followed the Croatian tradition, and one in Belgrade, where the institution in Serbia followed the Serbian tradition. So people learned almost the same grammar, but spelling rules, preferred words, and even style of expression was slightly different depending on where you were in Croatia or in Serbia. After the 1990s, separate identities. With the breakup of Yugoslavia, the languages separated again and they became Croatian, Serbian, Bosnian, and later Montenegrin. Each country emphasized their own standard, choosing words, spelling, the expressions that reflect their national identity. Today, linguists say that they are still mutually intelligible, however, politically and culturally, they are treated as different and separate languages. This was a really short history lesson. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to give me a like and subscribe for my channel, and we will move from theory and history to practice and real life today. Today, the most obvious difference is in vocabulary. Both languages share a huge amount of words, but there are sometimes different words for everyday things. For example, train in Croatian is vlak, in Serbian it's voz. Bread in Croatian it's kruh, in Serbian it's hljeb. Thousand in Croatian it's tisuća, in Serbian it's hiljada. Airplane in Croatian it's zrakoplov, in Serbian it's avion. To give you an even clearer picture of how Croatian and Serbian words look like in real life, I filmed some signs for you in Croatia and in Serbia. So we will compare different words like a store, a bakery, and so on. So the street in Croatian is ulica, in Serbian it's also ulica but written in Cyrillic. Souvenir shop is suvenirnica in Croatian and it's suveniri in Serbian, basically means souvenirs. Pharmacy is ljekarня in Croatian and in Serbian it's apoteka. Kazalište is the theater in Croatian and in Serbian it's pozorište. The bank is banka in Croatian and banka in Serbian. Trg Slobode, which is the square of freedom, is the same in Serbian and in Croatian. Trg Slobode. Mjenjajčnica, which is the exchange office, is also the same. Mjenjajčnica in Serbian. For rent is zanajem or izdaje se in Serbian. Flower shop is cvjećarnica in Croatian and cvećara in Serbian. The driving school is autoškola in both. Then we have bakery, pekarnica in Croatian and pekara in Serbian. Then no parking, which is zabranjeno parkiranje in both Serbian and Croatian. And museum is muzej in both Serbian and Croatian. So if you travel between two countries, you'll quickly notice these little differences. And from myself personally, I want to add that in Croatia, I hear different variations. Some people don't say zrakoplov, they say avion, or they say hiljada instead of tisuća. So my personal guess is that both Serbs and Croats know both variations and they just use them depending on their personal background. Now, while I was showing the signs to you, you've probably noticed the difference already. Croatians only use the Latin alphabet, and Serbian uses both Cyrillic and Latin alphabet, although Cyrillic is the official alphabet in Serbia. Most Serbs can read and write both alphabets, but we cannot say the same about Croatians. Because in Serbia, children learn both alphabets in school, Cyrillic and Latin, so most Serbian people can read and write in both alphabets without any problems. In Croatia, however, the only official script is Latin. Cyrillic is not taught in school, so most Croatians cannot read Cyrillic as easily as Serbs can read Latin. Some people in Croatia, especially older generations or those who learned Russian or another Slavic language, can read Cyrillic. However, that's more of an exception than a rule. And here is an interesting fact. Serbian Cyrillic is different from the Cyrillic in Russian, Ukrainian, and Belarusian. Some letters are completely different and they are unique to Serbian, but if you know Cyrillic, it's really easy to learn. And here is something from my own experience. When I watch reels or short videos from Croatians or from Serbians, I don't really know who that is. I cannot immediately tell whether it's a video from a Serbian or from a Croatian creator. The languages sound so similar that for me it's hard to distinguish them. And what's also interesting that most bloggers in Serbia, they use Latin script for their subtitles. My guess is because this way they can reach a wider audience, since Latin is easier for more people to read. But it also means that when I scroll through videos, I cannot distinguish whether it's a Serbian or a Croatian creator right away. Yeah, maybe later I will be able to do that. The pronunciation is very similar, but there are some small distinctions. For example, Croatian sounds maybe sharper, more like Central European, and Serbian sounds softer and maybe kind of more melodic. It's hard to tell the difference, especially if you are not a native speaker, but native speakers usually can tell them apart. Grammar is almost identical, but there are differences in spelling conventions. For example, Iekavian versus Ekavian pronunciation or spelling system. Croatian standard is Iekavian and Serbian standard can be Ekavian, can be Iekavian, but more Ekavian. What does that all mean? For example, if we take a word milk, in Croatian it's going to be mlijeko and in Serbian it's going to be mleko. Or let's say time. In Croatian it's vrijeme and in Serbian it's vreme. There is actually a third spelling system which is called Ikavian. This one is popular, is used in some Dalmatian regions of Croatia and some Bosnian dialects, but this means that in case for milk and time we would say mliko and vrime. And it just works like that for other words. Now, I said that the grammar is almost identical, but there are some things that you can also notice. For example, in Croatian, more often they use infinitives like, for example, I want to sleep, they would say želim spavati. And in Serbian, they try to avoid infinitives and they say želim da spavam, which literally would mean like I want that I sleep, that I'm sleeping now, something like that. We already mentioned vocabulary and the borrowings, but I'll just quickly mention that because of the history, Croatian borrowed more words from German, Italian, and Hungarian, and Serbian borrowed more words from Turkish and Russian origins. Now, let me tell you a little bit about my speaking experience in Serbia. I went there with my partner and we went to a coffee shop where I asked the waiter on purpose what kind of coffees they had so she could speak for a little longer. We understood her with no problems, she understood us. Then we met our friend in Serbia who is Serbian and we spent about 2 hours together talking all the time, him in Serbian and us in Croatian. At least we tried our best and there was no difficulties in communication. After that we went to a restaurant. The menu was in Latin, the bills are also in Latin, I mean Latin script, not Latin language. And then yeah, there was no difficulties communicating with the waiter there. And then another coffee shop where I asked the waiter about the difference between cappuccino and kava s mlekom, which is coffee with milk, and also like some ice cream taste, a little small talk. And yeah, there was no language barrier whatsoever. But let's not forget an important detail. I live in the region of Slavonia, and here Shtokavian dialect is spoken, and as we learned today, it is also the standard of the Serbian language. So, Croatian from this part of Croatia and Serbian are very similar. However, there are two more main dialects in Croatia, Kajkavian and Chakavian, and these dialects will have more differences with Serbian than Shtokavian. Regional dialects in Croatia and Serbia can differ a lot. In theory, if we took someone from Istria, let's say someone who lives close to Italy and they speak some Croatian mixed with Italian loanwords, and maybe we take someone from eastern Serbia, somewhere near Romania, who also speak a strong dialect, these two people might have difficulties understanding each other, again, in theory. In practice, the standard Croatian and the standard Serbian languages are based on the same dialect, Shtokavian dialect. This one is taught in schools, this one is used in the media, this one you will learn if you're learning Serbian or Croatian. So both languages are really close and mutually intelligible, and people who speak some certain dialect, they usually switch to standard Croatian or standard Serbian when they speak with someone outside of their region or they know that this is a foreigner. By the way, if you are a foreigner and you're thinking about moving to Croatia, I have a really nice video about the pros and cons of living in Croatia after having lived here for almost 4 years, so I highly recommend you check this out here. Hopefully you'll find it useful. But yeah, many people actually compare Croatian and Serbian with British and American English. And in some ways, that's true. The grammar is almost the same, the main difference are only in vocabulary and spelling. But unlike British and American English, Serbs and Croats don't see their language as the same language. For them, it's a matter of their national identity. So, while yes, linguistically it's similar to British and American English, culturally and politically, it's a much more sensitive topic. So, as you can see, the answer to the question, are Croatian and Serbian languages the same, is not that simple. It's not a simple yes or no, because if you say no, can I then say I'm a polyglot, I speak 10 languages and 4 of them would be Croatian, Serbian, Montenegrin, and Bosnian? I guess no. And nobody actually says so. Well, some foreigners say so to make an impression, like I speak so many languages, but if you look at those languages linguistically, it's almost the same, right? But then there is culture and politics, and people want to keep their personal identity and culture, and they want to have their own language, and we should respect that, in my opinion. But yeah, if you're from Croatia or Serbia, maybe even Bosnia or Montenegro, let me know what you think. If you have something to add to this, I tried to make this video as simple as possible and not to make it too long, because in my opinion the topic is really interesting and fascinating, and there is a lot to talk about, a lot of things to look at. But if you have something to add, feel free to do so in the comments below. And thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next video. Bye bye!